I called President Trump a short time ago, and he picked up to talk about the negotiations over the weekend with the Iranians. We had this report at the top of the day today that the Iranians were actually breaking off negotiations with the United States. That moved oil markets, and so that's what I asked the president about. I said, do you think the negotiations are over now, or is this a bluff by the Iranians? The president said, I don't care if they're over, honestly. I really don't care. I couldn't care less. If they're over, they're over. If they're not, I think they took too much time. Frankly, I think they started to get a little boring.
The IRGC in Iran has officially called off all diplomatic talks with the United States following Israel's insistence to basically carry out and intensify its attack and offensive on Lebanon. And the Iranians have made abundantly clear they are not going to engage in peace talks unless the slaughter campaign ends in Lebanon. Israel insists on continuing. So Cenk, no end in sight.
Yeah, well, right before the show, Donald Trump said that he was going to get Israel to stop bombing Lebanon.
Let's all stop for laughter.
Yes, canned laughter. Netanyahu right afterwards said, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So who's in charge? We all know who's in charge. Israel's in charge. Did you notice what Trump said? I'm getting bored with the negotiations. Well, we wouldn't want to bore you. I mean, not only are tons of lives on the line and billions upon billions of dollars on the line, but the entire world economy is on the line here. But Donald Trump might get bored and doze off, so he doesn't care if the peace negotiations come to an end. And the reality is, as you're gonna see here, Israel's in charge.
So Trump spoke to CNBC's Eamon Javers today to basically weigh in on how the peace negotiations are going, and more importantly, discuss the breakdown in diplomacy and how this is going to impact oil prices. And of course, the president offered an incoherent and contradictory response. Let's take a quick look at that.
Ultimately, on oil prices, the president was confident that he said oil will be dropping like a rock. He said, ultimately, if the Iranians want to try and have a nuclear weapon, I will blow them up to kingdom come. Then I asked him, what is the end game here in terms of the Strait of Hormuz? How ultimately are we going to get out of the situation that we're in? The president said he thinks that NATO should come in and help the United States out. He said they're the ones, he said, we don't use the strait, we don't need it, we have a lot of oil. And I said, have you talked to anybody at NATO about that? Have they changed their tune on coming in to help the United States in the strait? He said they would if I wanted to, but we don't need them. We don't need NATO. They were very weak and very sad.
No. You are very weak and very sad. You are being controlled by the leader of a foreign country, and you got dragged into a disastrous war that's wrecking the global economy because you decided to fight a war on behalf of Israel. And by the way, guys, this is terrible news, mostly for the global economy, because Iran does have control of the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, over the weekend, dozens of vessels transited through the strait and paid Iran the $2 million toll, or environmental fee, as they're calling it, so it'll actually be considered legal. And this is according to the Economic Times. So that's $50 million for 28 ships to be exact, which transited in a 24-hour period. The IRGC expects to collect around $1.5 billion a month from these transit tolls. And this is both a way to alleviate the pain from US sanctions against Iran, while also pressuring Gulf states to expel, US presence from their countries. And I love what Glenn Deason, who's a geopolitical analyst, says in this next clip, because he really helps to crystallize how sophisticated and intelligent Iran's strategy has been so far. Take a look.
The Iranians essentially reached the conclusion they don't need a deal. All they need to do is the Strait of Hormuz. That's how you get peace. And I've spoken about that before. As long as they hold the Strait of Hormuz, they have the toll there. Then they can also begin to adjust the toll based on which countries are trying to transit. That is, put a higher toll on countries that has sanctioned Iran. Now they have economic incentives to drop the sanctions. Put higher toll on countries that threaten Iran by hosting US bases. Now the Gulf states will have incentives not to rebuild the American bases, which the Iranians have degraded to a large extent. And you can put higher tolls on countries that sell their oil in dollars, which is what essentially sustains the petrodollar system and the U.S. security interest in the region. So they just need the Strait of Hormuz, and then they can begin to essentially decouple the U.S. from the region and have both their economic and military security in place.
So this will likely be the new status quo, unless Trump engages in diplomacy and makes a deal with Iran. But Israel refuses to allow that to happen. And in fact, every time there is any indication that there could be a peace deal, Israel intensifies their attacks on Lebanon, including Beirut, by the way. And we're gonna talk about that in more detail in just a second. But what makes matters worse, guys, is that now Iran is also saying that the IRGC intends to close the El Mendeb Strait. So Tasnim, which is close to Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, said that Iran and its allies had set their determination to completely block the Strait of Hormuz and activate other fronts, including the Bab el Mandeb Strait at the entrance to the Red Sea. Iran's threat to blockade this strait would mark an escalation in its steps to inflict pain on the global economy in order to force the US into concessions. And guys, this is really bad news, and even the oil barons are admitting it.
Quick question. When was the last time you went to bed before midnight without your phone lighting up your face? It turns out if you've got the news cycle on a loop in your head, it's harder to fall asleep. Here's what's actually happening. The stress, the screen time, the doom scrolling spiral, it raises your core body temperature. And a body that's too warm cannot get into deep sleep. You're not just tired because the news is exhausting, you're tired because your body never actually recovered. The good news is science has a real answer, and it's simpler than you think. Your bed temperature. Enter ChiliPad 2.0 by Sleep Me, the water-based mattress topper that actively controls your bed temperature from 55 to 115 degrees all night long. No new mattress, no renovation. It actively cools just using water. Fans only move hot air around. ChiliPad actually pulls heat away from your body, precise, consistent comfort, and the new nightstand remote senses when you get into bed and kicks on automatically. Dual zones mean you and your partner each set your own temperature. No subscriptions needed. You get a 2-year warranty, and they're designed and assembled in the USA. Look, I'm up late doom scrolling with the rest of you. Getting my sleep environment under control changed everything, so give it a try. Visit www.sleep.me/TYT to get up to $255 off your ChiliPad 2.0 with code TYT. That's www.sleep.me/TYT. Free shipping, free returns, and a 30-night trial so you can test it out, dream big, and wake up better. The headlines will still be there in the morning. You might as well wake up ready for them.
So let's take a look at this post. Exxon is saying that oil prices will rise to $150 to $160 per barrel in coming weeks. And that's according to Exxon Senior Vice President Neil Chapman, who said this at a conference hosted by Bernstein in New York. Quote, I mean, really, really low levels, Chapman warned. You can debate whether that's going to hit those really low levels, meaning the oil reserves that we have right now, which we're relying on to kind of keep oil prices under control to some extent. But once you get to that point, then you'll see prices shoot up. The price of physical Brent oil cargoes will spike to $150 to $160 per barrel when inventories hit all-time lows in coming weeks.
So that's without the war restarting. So that disaster is headed in your direction no matter what. And if the war restarts, it'll be much worse. Now, that gets us to more of the breaking news. So I'm gonna read this to you. Anna's gonna flip out in the beginning, and then we're gonna get through all of it, okay? Because Axios is reporting that Trump and Netanyahu had an angry phone call.
Oh my God. How is Barak Ravid still employed? Like, Axios, have a little bit of self-respect. Have a little bit of dignity. How many times is this guy gonna publish the same BS article? How many times? How many times? Dude worked for Israeli intelligence, the 8200 unit. He is not to be trusted.
Okay, so now
he's an agent of the Israelis moonlighting as a journalist.
So we don't know.
Hilarious.
That.
No, we do know that. We don't know that. I know that.
Okay, so now I'm going to tell you what Axios is reporting, but then we're going to quickly get to reality, which is what Trump has said publicly and what Netanyahu has said publicly just a little while ago. Okay, so Axios says that Trump accused Netanyahu of having ingratitude and that he was crazy, and then they have this quote: "You're effing." This is Trump. What Trump allegedly told Netanyahu: "You're effing crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everyone hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this." Okay.
Well, that part's true.
That part is true. And the reason why I say we don't know that is because, look, Axios is writing down the things that certainly Americans are thinking. I don't know if they're putting it in Trump's mouth, but if they are, that certainly doesn't help Israel's cause. But apparently, if you're there to be believed, Trump was livid at what Netanyahu is doing in Lebanon because it is actively destroying any chance at peace. So then Trump put out a statement publicly saying, "I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today, asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon." So he wrote, he turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. I also had a conversation with the representatives of the leaders of Hezbollah, and they agreed to stop shooting at Israel and its soldiers. Likewise, Israel agreed to stop shooting at them. Let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully it will be for eternity, and he writes it in caps.
Hezbollah has said that they've had no communication with Trump whatsoever.
But at the same time, the government of Lebanon says Hezbollah is willing to do a ceasefire. And to be fair to Hezbollah, they did not violate the last ceasefire. Israel violated it 1,000 times, and I'm being literal about that. But so Hezbollah and Iran have said they're ready for peace many times, right? Including now. So what was Israel's reaction? Netanyahu immediately went on tape. After Trump said, "I told Netanyahu not to attack Lebanon," and he agreed. Netanyahu said, quote, "Tonight I spoke with President Trump and told him that if Hezbollah does not cease attacking our cities and citizens, Israel will attack terror targets in Beirut." Beirut is the capital of Lebanon and is civilian areas. And so does Hezbollah attack Israeli cities? Etc., as he's talking about? No, at this point, they're mainly focused on protecting southern Lebanon, which Israel is invading. Netanyahu is saying it as if Hezbollah is invading Israel. No, Israel is invading Lebanon. Hezbollah at this point is doing self-defense. And if you say they don't have a right to defend themselves and they should just let their citizens be slaughtered by the Israelis, you're an immoral person. And totally and utterly irrational. But more important to the point of what's going to happen next, last thing that Netanyahu said was, "This stance of ours remains unchanged. In parallel, the IDF will continue to operate as planned in southern Lebanon." So that is Netanyahu's slapping Trump across the face and saying, "You're not the boss of me, I'm the boss of you. I will keep attacking Lebanon, I will destroy this peace deal, and there's nothing you're gonna do about it. Instead, you're gonna serve me and go back into the war." Because guys, if that's not true, if what I'm saying is hyperbolic or Israel doesn't have much influence at all on Trump or our government, the answer to this is super simple. Trump goes and makes a deal with the Iranians and says, open up the Strait of Hormuz, take out the nuclear enrichment, and we'll lift our blockade and we'll go home, right? Well, all we cared about was the enrichment and the Strait of Hormuz. So the rest, Lebanon, the proxies, all of Israel's interests, that's their business, that's not our business. So if Israel wants to continue the war with Iran, have at it, Hoss. I'm not in favor of it, I want peace. But if you want to keep attacking Lebanon, you want to keep attacking Iran, that's between you and Iran, you and Lebanon. We here in America have absolutely nothing to do with it. We should not engage our military in it, and we should not use a single American taxpayer dollar to help Israel declare war on all of its neighbors, to steal their land, which is now indisputably true. They're saying we are going to take southern Lebanon. We have already taken over 60% of Gaza, and we're gonna take over 70% of Gaza. This has always been about land theft. The only reason, if you don't know that, the only reason you don't know it is because American media lies in mass on behalf of Israel, and is trying to trick you and deceive you into thinking that Israel are the victims doing self-defense, when in reality they are the enormous aggressors that have committed a genocide, attacked 7 of their neighbors, and just now, as we're live, have destroyed yet another chance at peace with Iran. And they say, if we're at war, you have no sovereignty at all, America. You will do as you are ordered and you will go back into the war. Now you're gonna get to see with your own eyes. Does Trump go, well, then I'm done with you. I'm making a peace deal with Iran and you're on your own? Or does he go, yes, sir, sorry, sir, I'm so sorry. No matter what Barack Ravid reports about how angry Trump is and he's gonna do this or that, the only thing that matters is action. What do you do? So if Trump does a peace deal, great. If he doesn't do a peace deal and he goes back into the war, Israel 100% controls this country, and any other country can ban me and any other country can kiss my ass. But I'm gonna keep on telling the truth here because that is indisputably true.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.